Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I think the first thing I want to say tonight is hooray for Zoom. Between Fenwick and I this last week has been a bit of a challenge. I've got COVID. I'm currently in quarantine. I'm not allowed out again till Thursday. Fenwick's had a stinking cold. And on Friday, he lost all his power and he's finally back in his house with full power and heating today. Woohoo! None of this would have been feasible had it not been for the power of Zoom and doing all this stuff online. And we've got snow here, so I think getting people physically to a venue would have been an issue today as well. So anyway, Fenwick, the mighty Fenwick. Fenwick's, I don't even know where to start, buddy. He's a bit of a legend. He's an outdoor swim coach. He's been a coach for 20 odd years up in the northeast. I also discovered when we had our little pre-chat that he's also been a kayaker for even longer, and we have common ground in that we both paddled down the Tyne at various points, and I think it's a really important thing to take into account on this talk, is that between us we have lots of other water knowledge, experience of being in and around water in various guises, whether it's in kayaks, paddleboards, walking up rivers, surveying rivers, which is something I used to do, and it really brings a whole massive breadth and knowledge to this side of swimming and this kind of slightly more adventurous side of swimming. So tonight we're going to talk mostly about Fenwick's recent travels on the Tyne. So he spent the last 2 years. When did you start it, Fen? I can't remember.
Yeah, 2019. So 2019 I started it. Hurdles and walls came in between, and So
Fenwick spent the last 2 years swimming, walking, paddling, trekking, scrambling up both branches of the Tyne, up the North and South Tyne. So we're mostly going to talk about that tonight, but this is, as much as anything, an opportunity for you to sit and listen to Fenwick talk through that journey, but also ask us loads of questions about the slightly more adventurous side of swimming, so going a little bit beyond your average dip in a lake. But before we get cracking on the Tyne traveller story, we're going to just have a little bit of a chat about what exactly is adventure swimming. You know, what is it? What are we talking about here? Go for it, Fenwick.
It's definitely something quite new when it comes down to like outdoor swimming. English are quite odd. They did just like create this wild swimming scene, but over the years we have actually seen some pretty awesome sports come out, and the thing is about like even adventure is like we kind of create something, and we always go beyond and go around the corner and kind of want to find something else, make it bigger, make it faster, or more challenging, and that's just natural. Our natural process is to make something a bit more challenging, and seek out new targets. But yeah, adventure swimming. I mean, there's like the likes of like cross-country swimming, where you trek, swim, and then trek. Adventure swimming could be literally just swimming up a very small stream. Is an adventure. It's seeking out in a new place that you haven't been, and finding these Goldilocks zones of like beauty and recording them. Maybe it's taking a photograph. But yeah, adventure swimming has really kind of exploded because a lot more people are like getting out and doing outdoor swimming, and but combining some of those people who are like actually, they might be already a mountaineer or someone who does a lot of walking, and they want to combine a bit of swimming up in the mountain, or it's got really loads of different routes when it comes down to adventure swimming. And I suppose when it comes to what I've been doing is, yes, it is adventure swim, but I've kind of changed it a little bit, and it was the river trekking. River trekking is it's a little bit popular in Asia, and the likes of actually Hong Kong and a few of our Asian countries have like a very similar sort of river trekking activity that they do. Not many people do it over here, and in fact, I still haven't found anybody in the UK that scales rivers from sea to source, going up against the flow. I know there's a couple of other people swimming downriver, and there's one lad in New Zealand, and he's been doing downriver swims. But yeah, it's I don't know. I'm not going to say that seems easy, because I know for a fact it still will be brutal hard, a huge challenge, very quick. But I suppose what I do with the river trekking, going against the flow, yeah, it's a total different game, going up against the flow and actually staying in the water the whole time and being very stubborn and not coming out, even at fast flow. But yeah, adventure swimming is it has quite a few different routes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great, isn't it? I have a quote I use quite a lot on talks and on kind of courses and stuff I do, which was it's from Ian Fleming, and it's a quote said by Grandpa Potts in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, of all the films it could come from, of Ian Fleming's really. But it's, oh God, I'm trying to remember it now. It's never say no to adventure, always say yes, otherwise you'll lead a very dull life. And I think it's just the perfect little quote. It's always just go and take that little adventure, that little push. And it doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be something huge. It can just be pushing yourself slightly out of your comfort zone. Yeah. To push into your out of comfort zone and taking that extra risk. I know we talked about this before, haven't we? And you know, I've not done anything anywhere near as adventurous Fenwick, but I've done some stuff. I've swum down the length of Westwater. I've travelled quite a bit. But I remember when I first had my eldest child, and the first time I went to the supermarket with a newborn, that to me was a massive adventure that day, because that was something I'd never done before. And it was a bit scary. It was ace, but it was a little bit scary. And from that, you then learn to progress through life and just to push those little bits a bit more. So why do we do it? Why do we choose that adventure? Why do we choose to push it that little bit extra?
Yeah, it's, you know, I think like what I was saying just before, is we always seek what's around that corner for ourselves. The challenge, you know, that buzz, that kick of going, I just did that. I went up there. I actually looked at a really high point, or you know, and was a stream, and I actually went all the way up there. And you get a really big kick, and it feels great to accomplish things like that. So I mean, why do we do it? Well, yeah, I mean, for me, it's I do get just a little bit more than just a kick out of it, and I do like to find just that what some would say that would be quite dangerous, and I know that I can achieve it and do it. I like to prove it to myself, and you know, and record it. But yeah, it is all about that seeking the adventure side. And I think one of the things that I pointed out on describing like the likes of adventure swimming was going beyond the swim. Yeah, so it's I do it because well, it's this list I've got, and I've got this very secret list.
I want in on that list. I want in on doing something on that list with you.
I've got it here, but I'm not going to show it. But no, it's things that I know I can achieve, but are quite high targets. I'll write them down, and I'm like 100% going to do them. And it's not a bucket list, and it's definitely not, because it's basically an achievement list. That's what it is. And as soon as something pops up in the head, straight away get that down, because it's going to happen. So yeah. Why?
Fab. So why then? Yeah. Why tackle the Tyne specifically? I know it's your home turf, isn't it? But yeah, so why the Tyne?
Well, the Tyne, first off, was because, yeah, one, it's on my home turf, but also I know it really well. It was going to be a new challenge, something brand new to me to take on. Was going to be incredibly dangerous. I had, would take a lot of effort to like understand where I'm going with it, like scaling the river and being safe. And I've grew up on that river, and I've paddled it, and I went up and down it. I have swam in an immense amount of places before I actually did the trek. But the thing is, with the Tyne, I had all that previous sort of experience on it and learning the river, that it gave me a huge amount of confidence to start off with. So yeah, and it is my beginning parts for something that's turned into something a lot bigger than what I thought it would be. The Tyne is a very special one because it was a very achievable one, but it was thought up around the fire with a couple of cans. So
see, this is all the best trips start in the pub or by the fire, by an open fire, in my book. Yeah, totally. And it kind of in tribute to your mate's dad?
Yeah. So a very special friend of mine who passed away from cancer. I've got hairs raising up on my arms because you called him Keith, and Keith used to take me off paddling. He used to come pick me up when I was younger. I'm talking about, I would have been about 9, 10 when he used to pick me up, and we used to go down to the coast, and he used to teach me how to surf in the playboats. He took me down some of the biggest waters when I was in my teens. This guy was like a huge teacher, not only just for paddling, but for where I stand now. He did a lot for me as a kid, and right up until in my 20s and 30s. He was a great guy. He led me down some immense places, mind, when there was police telling us to get off the river. And the water on the river was touching the lip of the bridge, and we were going down the River Allen, and the water was going through the trees. And it's one of the biggest whitewater rivers that we have up here. And it's I'm going back to thinking about what we actually did. I don't think I would do it again. Like it was insane. But this guy gave me the confidence. So when it came down to the idea, I said to my friend Dan, his son, who I met years later, I said to him, one of my things on my list, I'm going to scale the river. He went, what? What do you mean? I went, well, I'm going to go from the sea all the way up to Kielder and across Kielder. He went, shut up. You're not, you cannot. I went, well, you've just given us ammunition. I'm totally going to do it. A few months later, I'd already went through a huge amount of training, and yeah, so the Tyne was gripped. The whole idea was gripped within an instance and brought back up from the middle of the list to the top of the list.
But you said you did it because Dad had said you can't do it, and he said, yeah. But your dad would have told me to do it. Your dad would have got me to do it. That's why I'm doing it. Yeah,
that's basically it. If I get told that no, you can't do something, and I know in my head I definitely can, I'm like, well, I'm going to show you.
Awesome. This is fun. I love a good story behind doing something. It's nice. Right, so let's get on to what you actually did on the Tyne. So there's 2 branches to the Tyne. So how far up so obviously starts down at Newcastle-ish. My geography is kind of okay. And then comes up, branches off. Mm-hmm. You've got the North Tyne goes up to Kielder. South Tyne wiggles its way across a little bit more. So what's the total distance for each of those stretches that you did?
Right, okay, so it's quite an odd one. because the mileage kind of gets smashed up with the swimming against the flow. But the river map miles for the total from the Newcastle, from the point where the sea water is on the Tyne, right up until Kielder and across, well, up to Kielder anyway, is about 45 to 47 river mapped miles. So that's for the North Tyne, and you're looking at nearly 700 meters elevation going up there. But really, what I ended up doing was anything between, well, it was well over 70 mile that I ended up doing, because I ended up swimming against the flow quite a lot, and being very stubborn at not getting out and continuing to push against the flow. I'll come back to the flow in a moment.
Stubborn, I can't possibly imagine, Fen.
Stubborn with myself, yeah. Even in pain with the shoulders, because I had some big dinner plates. I'll show you again in a moment. But I had some really big tier dinner plate sort of paddles. They're the biggest paddles you can get, and I had them on for miles, and like really swimming with them. And pulling gear behind us. My shoulders were really painful. But anyway, so the North Tyne, it was a beast. That was quite some distance that I actually did. Now the South Tyne, when I was doing the North Tyne, and I got to the Rivers Meet where the North Tyne goes off, and the South Tyne comes down and collides. When I got to that point, my head was in a completely different place. I was actually like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. This is gonna be great. I'm so chuffed and buzzing that I'm getting this far. But when I got to the meetings, I was like, oh no. Looking at the South Tyne, I'm like, it doesn't feel complete. Like if I get to the top of the North, like I haven't completed the Tyne really, because the South Tyne comes in, and I'm going to have to come back to this point and go up the south. And then I actually sat down and had my I sat down and actually had something to eat, and watched the water come past us. And I was actually fighting in my head, going, "Don't be ridiculous. Just do this and be happy with it." No. I'm going up there. I'm going to do the whole lap. And when I started doing, when I finished going across Kielder, because Kielder was another beast. That was a hell of a swim. I'll come back to talking about Kielder. When I had finished that section, it was just obliteration. I was absolutely done in, and I coming back to do the South Tyne. I was walking up that first little bit. I knew straight away then. Do you know what? I haven't really finished yet. And before I even started the South Tyne, I knew I'd not even finished anything with river trekking. I knew that I was going to end up doing a lot more. So within the first mile or two, I'd already planned in my head that I was going to do all the main veins of Northumberland. So the next targets would be the River Wansbeck, and then the Corket, and then so on. But yeah, it doesn't.
I think it's fair to say you're a bit hooked to this, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely. It's one of the.
So let's talk through your North Tyne trip.
Okay.
So you started. Did you start off in Newcastle?
Yeah. So
yeah.
Right on the border of Newcastle.
Yeah. And is that all swim, or have you got to your trekking bit yet?
Yeah. So a lot of that was swimming. For the first good few sections from the border of Newcastle, I was doing a lot of swimming, and my hand paddles were on all the time. So the very beginning part of that, I actually had two amazing sea kayaker support, and literally they did so well in getting so up to about a few mile up, and then it got a bit too dangerous. I mean, I was able to actually continue on and keep on swimming, but they were struggling, and it was getting a little bit too dangerous for them to follow us. So we called my safety team off, and I continued on. After that, I ended up going up past Prudhoe, which some people will probably pronounce it as Prudhoe, or but that's what you normally hear it pronounced as. But once you get past there, there's a huge long section where the water, there's nowhere to get out on the left hand side, and on the right hand side it was just all bushes. This was my first taste of really negotiating and navigating myself around the river and creating a pattern of how to get up and scale it. So to be able to actually not get trapped in bushes, and to look after myself on parts where I couldn't get out, I had particular techniques of actually anchoring myself down. And yeah, I got trapped in quite a lot of bushes and swept under stuff, and had to just ditch my gear and pick it back up again, swim after it, and then cut across the river. The amount of times I had to cross the river, unreal. And that was what was going to be the game. It was swim, cross, swim, cross, fall over.
I think that's really, really where your existing moving water kayaking experience comes in, isn't it? Because you know what the water's doing and what risks you can and can't comfortably take. So you know exactly what trees do, you know what obstacles in the water do, you know where all the safe bits in the water flow are that you can get away with.
It's the whole that whole section that I did, and then got to the top of it where it got a bit more shallow and faster, and then I managed to get myself a rest on a rock. I did think to myself, I was like, I have bitten off quite a bit here, because I'm literally devouring energy, and I'm having to really be really careful not to actually hurt myself. But yeah, the first few days of actually scaling up that first section, coming up to going up the North Tyne, it took me quite a while to get up towards Hexham area. It took me a couple of days to actually even scale that first section, which I do call it.
What's the distance on that? What's the distance on that bit? Ish.
Oh, you put us on the spot there, but I think it's around about 20. It's about Hexham's about the halfway point, really. It's still
that's a hell of a distance going upstream, though.
Yeah. Do you know what though? As well, Corbridge and Hexham are around about are really close together. It took me nearly a day just to do that section. It was such a short amount. But the thing is, though, I'd done it the day after doing the big section, so I was already quite done in. But there was nowhere to get out, really. I wasn't leaving the water. I had one of my friends follow up with us, and she was laughing at us because she was saying, "Just get out." I'm like, "Nah, nope, I'm not getting out." I was sitting in this whirlpool, going round and round, having the rest, have a snack in the whirlpool, and then carry on again.
I think it's fair to say there's quite a bit of determination required for feats of this type. Yeah.
The whirlpools were the quite dangerous ones, and as well as the flood rock, they were the two most dangerous most dangerous things apart from the big white water.
So what do you mean by flood rock?
So yeah, absolutely fantastic question. Actually, I'm pleased you actually said that. So when we actually look at how rock gets washed down the river, quite often you get bundles of rocks piled up on top of each other, and you can imagine some of them are just dead unsteady, and as soon as you put your foot on them, they'll just drop down or roll over the top of each other. And Yeah, so the flood rock, especially if I was stopping in an eddy and put my foot down, I had to be really careful and put where I put my foot, and I would actually put my foot down at the same time as putting my stick down, just in case there was flood rock. So if it did happen a few times, putting my foot down on a loose rock, it just created a hole and allowed stuff to fall from the edge of the river down towards my leg. And it's because of the sheer volume of water that comes down the River Tyne. Quite often, it's got a huge catchment, and it fluctuates in speed and height quite rapidly. So you get loads of stuff washed down. So yeah, the flood rock's quite dangerous because a big enough rock roll onto my leg, doesn't matter what skill I have. A rock big enough to trap my foot, and then the force of the water comes against my body, it just folds you down and it pushes you underneath the water. There was only 2 moments, one particular one where I did actually have quite a big boulder that moved right next to us, and it pinned the front of my foot, but I managed to actually free myself quick enough to move out the way, but it did move quite a bit, and it was terrifying.
Yeah.
But and that was coming out of an eddy as well. When I say it, actually, it was more of a big whirlpool, and that was me breaking back into the moving water and putting my foot down to push myself forwards. So yeah, I had to propel myself out of places quite often, and sometimes it just didn't work. Sometimes I face planted the water, and all you would hear on my GoPro was and a few swear words. If you rewind it back, you'll be able to make out what I'm saying. Yeah, the amount of times I like fell and hit. We'll come to the South Tyne, which is definitely the.
Yeah, they're 2 quite different rivers, aren't they?
Oh, so, huge difference. Yeah.
So the north, there was a good bit of swimming, the south not so much. So let's carry on going with the north. So we've got beyond Hexham, we've got to Corbridge. Now are we getting into the more trekking stretch of the north?
Yeah. To be honest, it was the once we started getting past Hexham, there was a lot more trekking involved. There was a lot more.
Is that where you had your incident with your ruck raft and needed a knife?
Yeah. Yeah. So
there's various stuff Fenwick used on these trips. One of which is this. It's basically a massive tow float, isn't it? It's a raft that you can put loads of stuff on and tow loads of stuff behind you with. But obviously, when you're in a moving river, you've got to be very conscious of what's flying around you. Yeah. So this was the best story you came out with, I think, when we chatted the other day. Go on, go into it.
So the thing about the whole being in the water with all my gear and pulling a raft behind us, I had to prepare myself for moments where I would possibly get trapped. The raft might have put me in danger, so I had to think of ways of supporting myself to free myself if that happened. So yeah, I had a lovely knife that would sit around my neck, and this would be tucked into my suit, and this has actually got a jaw opener, so I can actually open it with my teeth. So it's stuff into here, so I'll be able to get it out, open it up, and then cut myself off wherever. But I had 2 knives. I had one on my raft, one on myself as well. And yeah, so it was. I haven't put this video up because I'm still in 2 minds of actually showing anyone it, because it's not very nice. It's not a very nice movie. I probably will show it eventually. But yeah, so I got swept down, and I saved myself. I managed to put myself into a position where I anchored down with my pole, and being totally exhausted and trying to go on again. What I should have done was to go to the side and had a rest, then got back in and carried on. But instead, I decided to go at the water again, and this is fast moving water that's up to my waist, so it's only up to my waist. But you're talking about torrent of, like, you know, really fast, quite flow.
Yeah.
So I started swimming again, and I managed to actually get to a point where I was quite happy. But by the time I put my foot back down and anchored myself, everything slipped. I went, and there was an incident with a tree, basically. And the tree, I was actually on one side and the raft was on the other. I managed to get myself to a point where I was levering myself out, but the raft was actually was not helping at all, and I had to quickly try and get my knife out to cut the raft off us. But I managed to actually, while I was doing that, I was pushing at the same time to go around the side of a tree, and I managed to actually get myself loose. But I was holding the knife, ready to take the raft off us at the same time. At that point, I was face in the water all the way down, down some rapids, and couldn't get myself. Well, I had a knife like floating around my face as well. So I had to, like, while I was getting swept down, going in towards rapids where there was big rocks, I had to quickly put my knife back in, let myself getting trashed, and then get my foot and try and get myself to the side. Well, by this point, I was absolutely exhausted because I was trying to save myself. But the adrenaline was definitely kicking in. And there was a few of those moments, but that was one of the ones that really shook us. And I did sit on the side. I had a bit of a giggle to it. Looked at all my gear, give myself a pat on the back, and then cracked on. So, like, and it didn't make us want to stop, or it wasn't going to stop us from continuing on. But it was definitely a very, very dangerous moment of needing to cut the raft off. And
I think an eye opener into how much planning for something like this is so important, and understanding what could happen and being prepared for those circumstances. So the fact you had your knife on you, the fact you know what the water's going to do when you get swept from the other side of that tree, you know, that knowledge and understanding really important to making sure that you could keep yourself safe and come out of it at the other end. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I think my idea was later on, when I start setting up a little bit more info on river trekking, and I put all my my videos out, I will actually put some sort of guidance for anybody out there. And I think what was Andrew just put a friend of mine just put up a little question there. Do please upload the video. I will definitely. I will definitely put it up eventually, because it is something that someone else could learn from.
Definitely.
But I mean, it wasn't the only sort of mishap. I mean, getting swept down the river, what was at first, it was quite good fun, and like, but once you get further up the North Tyne, it gets a little bit, it gets a lot more dangerous, and so one of the things that you will see when you go on to the like people who are viewing now, and you get the chance to have a little look at my YouTube, and you'll see a little trailer for the North Tyne. One of the shots you'll see is me approaching one of the weirs, and this was my training ground. This was where I trained in fast moving flow and understanding my gear and everything like that. So I knew exactly where to swim and how to swim on that particular stretch. But from a camera angle, it looks ridiculous. So I'm swimming against a huge torrent of water, and I'm not going anywhere. But I am edging very, very slowly forwards in towards an eddy, which is And I'll just basically describe for viewers what an eddy is. An eddy is basically, if you can imagine a torrent of water going down, and then you have a rock. Once the water goes around that rock, the water kind of slows down behind that rock. So it allows you to travel up behind that rock. And basically there's an island just below the weir, and the water slows down just behind it. And that's what I was aiming for, a very, very small channel just to get in behind the island. And on the video, you can see me going against the floor, and I know I'm edging forwards, but you'll have to watch it. You'll see me pulling my raft behind us, and it does look a little bit ridiculous. But these are some of the things that I had to like kind of practice. And my practice ground was Chollerford Weir, and I did a lot of work in Chollerford Weir. I think when we were having a little chat, I spoke about the one instance when there was a couple of fishermen walking down, and I was in the water training, and it was quite high level, and it wasn't in flood, by the way. I don't swim in flood water. If it's light brown, I don't go in. This was high level water where Kielder had been releasing the reservoir. It had been releasing water, and the water levels had been up just slightly. So it was just raised. But anyway, there was a couple of fishermen walking down, and I did spot them, but I didn't realize they'd stopped, and they were standing there for ages watching me. And I was basically swimming out and then coming back in, having a rest, swimming back out, going back in. And I stopped and I turned. I was like, "Oh, it's still there." And I'll put this in the Geordie way. They said, "Are ye all right?" And that translated from Geordie is, "You're not right in the head. What's the matter with you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm absolutely fine. I'm just doing some training." And they shook their head and carried on. And I thought that was great. Like I get a bit of I get a kick out of that. But
yeah, I think we both came to the conclusion that we get a bit of a kick out of I don't know, the being described as odd or weird, or that thing you're doing is stupid or crazy. I think that's something that appeals to both of us, isn't it? As a compliment to us.
I stride myself well away from normality.
Right, so we're getting up the northern stretches of the the upper stretches of the North Tyne. So yeah. You're trekking through the river at this point. So what kind of depth is the water? What kind of force is it? Are we in rocky stuff? Are we shallow, wide river?
Still quite wide.
Yeah, still quite wide. What time of year did you do the North Tyne?
So most of my river trekking is between August and November. That's but I try to finish up before I do try to finish up before October, and I don't like to be in there for too long while the salmon are traveling up. But yeah. The river itself, when you start getting a bit further up, it gets faster, because it does start to narrow up a little bit, but it is still quite a wide river. In places, it's very, very small, but like stupidly fast. Those were the fun bits. So I mean, you're looking at like waist depth. For quite a bit. So once I started getting into like waist depth, I was actually getting myself swimming. So I'd switch my gear over and start swimming and pulling my gear. But if I wasn't swimming, I was wading and pushing my body against the floor. And what I would be doing there is I would have my ruck raft on my backpack, and then I would switch between. It did change quite a bit on the South Tyne, which I'll explain in a bit.
The South Tyne's quite a different beast, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. What was the water temperature like? The question that every swimmer asks.
Absolute Scorchio.
Yeah.
It was, to be honest, it was around that 15 degrees mark, and like, around about that sort of time of year. I mean, you can get anything between 15 and 18 degrees. So
yeah, so it's not that bad, is it?
Nah, it's not cold at all. The thing is,
I feel like I should interrupt Interject here though and say it's not that cold at all, right? People who may be on this call, 15 degrees may very well be quite cold for you, or 13. This man likes very cold water. His standards are very different to the average swimmer. He's buzzing because he's got ice on his leg this week. So.
Oh God, don't we get started about that?
No, we're not talking about ice swimming today. Carry on.
No, I know. So yeah, the gear that I had for going up that section was a ruck raft from above and below. They kindly sponsored and helped me get up the river, and I'm still using their gear. So their raft, which you'll see in some photos soon, is a fantastic bit of equipment that it's an inflatable tubular sort of raft with some straps on. But I originally started with like a spear fishing raft, and it was actually my friends at Outdoor Swimming magazine give me a shout and said, "What? Like you need to speak to these guys." And once they realized what I was doing, they were like, "We'll help you," which was just amazing. So a big shout to them, because like they're like my best pals when it comes. Like I'm just so chuffed that they've supported me all this way. And yeah, their gear is, I trashed that raft, and it still held its form. It still held all the way. In fact, it was a bit of a game to see if I could pop it.
Yeah, I mean,
I really tried hard.
I've paddled that river. The state of my boat after that river is bad enough, but never mind an inflatable raft. That's amazing. Yeah.
But I did pop it. I did put a hole in it eventually, and it was like a celebration. It's like, yes, did it. But I repaired it, and then it was onwards again. So yeah, it there was like you were asking about like the levels, the shape, and the how the river transformed as we got further up the Tyne and we got closer to Kielder. It did get a bit more narrow, but it became quite fast. So yeah, there was a bit more trekking involved, which I started getting some pretty good support, and yeah, so I had some amazing support from my partner. Jenny helped us out like loads, and she has from the very beginning. She's an absolute
big shout out for Jenny. I've met Jenny. Yeah, she's marvelous.
She's taking on the Tyne as well, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm such a lucky guy. But when it comes down to other support, I had a very beautiful bit of support from my dad. So just a quick sort of description and understanding of why it was so beautiful and so amazing. My dad, mechanic for 50 odd years, working from 6 till 7, didn't really see him loads, because it was literally, you would come home, eat his dinner, and would be flat out. And it was really hard. Yeah, my mum was actually ill until I was 16. So there was a lot of care towards my mum. My mum had quite a rough ride, and my dad, I see him as an absolute warrior, and to spend that time where he would come out in the morning, he'd be like, "I've got to go find him. I've got to see where he is." And he was on the walkie-talkie shouting like, "Where are you? Can you hear us? Where are you?" It was so good. I had to ignore him at some points, like, because it was just like, I'm trying to get through here. And he's like, "Why aren't you answering? Why aren't you?"
But didn't you randomly keep appearing by the river, like where you weren't expecting him?
Like the thing is, like up that sort of neck of the woods towards like Wark, that's his stomping ground. So like he knew like the farmers and that, and he literally just I'll be walking up a stretch where there's like no roads nearby, and then he's in the bush. And he's like, I was like, how did you get there? And it's so like it was quite lush, the support, and he really enjoyed it. But I think I've been a bit of an add to his bad mood. I know, but he really enjoyed to come out, and that was I've got a very, very special photo in amongst the photos, and we're gonna have a little flick through. You'll see I captured a very lovely photograph of me and my dad smiling at each other, and it was it just I'll just lush photo. So yeah, I had some good support all the way up to Kielder. And it
but most of it, but support-wise, you were essentially on your own for all of it, weren't you? You had a phone, you had walkie-talkies and stuff, but this was very much a solo adventure.
Yeah,
all in your own hands.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of it that was self-supported, you know, and I did have that like communication where I would keep communicating between Jen and my dad, and there was a tracker on us, and I didn't put it up publicly because I didn't want anybody to come down next to the water, basically, because it was a pretty dangerous thing to have as spectators to come down next to the water and watch us, especially when actually Kielder was releasing for the whole time I was doing that North Tyne. They were releasing extra amount of water, preparing for downfall.
So we should explain here. So the North Tyne, right at its upper reaches, is Kielder water. Is Kielder the biggest reservoir in the UK? I can never remember.
Yeah, it's actually so one of the biggest man-made in Europe as well.
Yeah, so the North Tyne not only is fed by its own kind of river catchment, but there's also extra infeed from Kielder water at certain times of year. And in the autumn, when Fenwick was doing this, they'll have been drawing down the water to make sure that there was enough capacity in the reservoir to hold water over winter. So there's like kind of a constant balance in the autumn to make sure that the water levels are kept okay ahead of the winter. So that's what we're talking about here in terms of the drawdown to the increased levels.
And they said Environment Agency and Northumbria Water and a couple of officials that I spoke to were like, "Do you really want to do it right now?" I'm like, "Yeah. Are you serious?" Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm doing it now. Right, okay. We'll inform anybody that's working on the river about you coming up.
I love this though, because that's a really positive engagement with the local EA and the water company, which is a phenomenal thing, because that isn't always the case across the rest of the UK. So that's amazing. Yeah,
I think one of the other things with that, when it comes down to the communication, I do get asked this question a fair bit. I did get quite a bit of sort of like head nod and support of some people who owned land that I was traveling through. So land access was a bit of a very touchy subject. And I am actually one of these who, you know, I will say they might own the land, but they don't own the water that travels through. And I will always stick to that. But I'm very respectful. I will respect anybody that I come up to. So if someone told me to leave, I would leave. You know, and you know, I would never fight anything because there's no point. But there was one particular thing that would be a big problem, would be the access while people were salmon fishing. So you've got fishermen would be getting pretty angry to see someone come up when they've spent. I mean, fishermen spend a lot of money on the rivers, and they put a lot of money into the economy, and it's respect. You like everybody, any sport, any activity, you respect them all. So anytime that I saw a fisherman, one of my main goals was to get a photograph with them, have a laugh with them, tell them what I'm doing. Managed to get I got quite a few big donations as well, which was like a huge like a huge big thanks again, and I'll constantly say thank you.
Yeah.
One donator, she met me as a party. She donated over £350, which was a big chunk.
Yeah.
And what I did was I told them what I was doing. I was dead friendly. There was only a few fishermen that were really cross, and I basically kept well out their way, and I actually exit the water. And yeah, it was quite complicated on some of them because there was some points where I couldn't exit the water and couldn't walk around. So I did. There was a couple of people a little bit upset, but I just apologized and got out their way straight away. So yeah, it was quite a tricky one when it comes down to that. But I did go around it the best way. When it came down to the fishermen, I got some.
And of course, and of course, then Northumbria Water gave you permission to swim the length of Kielder as well, with support.
Right.
Yeah. So that was the end of the North Tyne, wasn't it? So you swam the full length of Kielder. So how long Kielder?
So that swim, it was only meant to be anything between 11 and 12k. So it's a long swim.
Only.
Yeah. So it was a long swim. But a big shout out to everyone up at Leaplish and my friends at Northumbria Water. They supported me a lot. We had 2 safety boats with my safety team, and we had the BBC on one boat as well, and we had we had lovely support. But I am the second person to officially swim along it. You're not allowed to swim in Kielder. So I'll just iron that out right now. If anybody is thinking about swimming up at Kielder, please don't, because it is a no access when it comes down to swimming, and they've got some. It rightly so. It is a dangerous place to swim. So we swam from the dam area, which is just past the dam though, because I would not like to swim next to the dam, because it's terrifying. When I swam the length of Kielder, it was meant to be quite an easy sort of like hugging the shoreline, cross, and then up towards the finish point. And I finished before the nature reserve, because there's actually a section of Kielder that changes, and you're not allowed in there. There's actually a big no access. So we stopped at that point. But the thing is, the wind picked up when I got in, so it was like the Bay of Biscay. The waves were huge, and we had to change course. The best option was to cross the entire reservoir and swim on the opposite side, but then we had to cross again. I ended up doing about 14k, so it was a lot longer than what I wanted. I mean, I was again. I did get asked, do you not just want to swim like from the top end and come down? No, because it's like it's going against my whole route.
That's the wrong way. It's got to be the right way. Yeah.
And it was the hardest way to go, because I would have flew. Like coming back over towards the dam, I would have flew down and done a really good time. But no, it took me ages.
Yeah, for anyone who's tried to swim in a headwind versus a backwind, even though there is only a tiny bit of you, kind of your head's above the water, the difference between a headwind and a backwind is phenomenal. If you're in flat water, it's until you've done it, you wouldn't believe. And
I was still pulling my raft behind us. Everyone thought it was bonkers to still continue on with all my gear, and just swim. Don't bother. And I wanted to swim with my gear. And actually, I was going to do skins, which was my topmost favorite thing to do. I'm swimming at skins because that's what I like. I'd rather do it with skins is a term of swimming without a wetsuit. But Blue 70 made their very, very last thermal helix and printed on my business, H2O Trails. It was a very, very, very special wetsuit they created for us, and I'm proudly the last person to have a thermal helix.
Yeah.
So I wanted to christen it with a very special swim. So I decided, well, I'm going to do this pretty slow because I'm going against the wind. I'll christen my special suit. So I used a suit. I used a thermal suit to swim across Kielder, which
that's all right. You know me.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good with kit. I'm good with neoprene.
Yeah. It's absolutely fine, and I love the fact I've christened it that. But and this is probably me pointing out as well. My plans changed, and like I was gunning for the idea of I'm gonna do just in my speedos. I'm gonna fly along, but no, I had the raft and I'm suited. It's like it just changed all the time, and this is it though.
But again, it's that whole importance with a trip like this is making sure that you have that flexibility there to change and adapt if you need to, and to mix it up and not have such a bullheaded attitude that you won't change stuff if you need to part way through, because sometimes for safety reasons you have to do it. I know people who have got in a mess when they haven't been that flexible, and it's not ended badly, but not ended as well as it could have done. So we've finished the North Tyne. Now we're not going to talk about this too much, but you did then paddleboard all the way from Kielder back down to your start point, didn't you?
Yeah,
the most phenomenal. I've just watched the video this afternoon and it was amazing. I think my favourite quote from that was the fog on the Tyne, because you had to navigate in the dark whilst it was foggy.
If anyone's familiar with Fog on the Tyne song, Fog on the Tyne is all mine. It's something that I never really thought I would experience it the way I did anyway. But so starting off from scratch, I wanted to, since I'd scaled the North Tyne, constantly got the why didn't you go downstream and things like that. Like, well, one, it's too dangerous swimming down, because I wanted to keep my teeth, and because swimming into big rocks and that, because you're picking up speed and then all of a sudden it's shallow. No, you're all right.
Yeah.
But the thing is though, I did want to paddle down it, and this comes back to how this whole thing started around a fire with a couple of cars with a friend. I had the idea of paddling down the whole stretch, and then I said to someone where I work, I said, "Oh, I'm thinking about actually paddle down the whole stretch from Kielder to the sea." And he says, "Oh yeah, I asked my friend and told my friend that you were going to do that, and he said it was impossible because a few professionals have tried it and failed." And I'm like, right, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in a few weeks' time. And he went, "No, you're not." I went, "No, I am, totally." And actually, within a couple of weeks, I actually was already geared up and ready to do it. And I went up to Kielder, and I had to start. The thing is about that trip, I had to start at 12 o'clock at night and get and cover some distance, and then so I had to strap some particular lights on the front of my paddleboard. Without going into too much detail of this and going too far in, when I started and actually paddled down, I mean, you're talking about the pitch black. I mean, Kielder's a gold tier place. It's the darkest place in Europe. It is like ridiculously dark up there, darker than you've ever seen. But when I was paddling down, I couldn't use the torches because the fog on the Tyne was so thick, and it was all the way. It was just on the Tyne, all the way down. It was so thick. I had to turn off the torches. And it was a full moon, and I was using the tree line above the fog to gauge my speed, and I was listening to the water to see if there was any big rocks coming up. So I had to totally change the way I read the water. So that was quite exciting, and you'll see it on the video as well. So yeah, fog on the Tyne all the way to my sleep point, but I slept underneath a tree. Pulled my gear over the top of it early in the morning, cracked on and paddled the rest of it. It's quite a nice little video, so do have a little look at it. It's a beautiful video to watch. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Right. So we've done the North Tyne. South Tyne, we're going to keep this quite short because we're getting running out of time, and I want to talk about all your kit as well.
Yeah.
But the South Tyne's a very different beast, isn't it? So did you started from the meeting point, I presume, and didn't redo the whole of the other bit. Very rocky, shallower, much more of a trekking situation, isn't it? And you still haven't finished the South Tyne. So the North Tyne you did over a relatively short period of time, didn't you? Over kind of in big chunks of days. South Tyne's been a different assault. Yeah.
So the South Tyne, I wanted to do a lot more photography. So I wanted to capture the South Tyne in a different way rather than just the endurance sort of way. I wanted to actually capture some really nice photography and footage of me going up the river anyway. So I split it right up, and I did it one day a week every now and again. And I really, really, really enjoyed starting the South Tyne because I'd already went through a lot with the North. So I kind of had it down with what I was going to be doing. But yeah, I'm only up to Ulster at the moment. I am actually going to go in this week, which it really depends on how much snow is up there, because there's going to be quite a lot of trekking to get myself back out. But it really depends on how this week goes anyway. So I'm hoping this is my only chance. This Wednesday and Thursday is my only chance to actually achieve the very ending of the Tyne. So if I don't get it, I don't get it. I'll wait until next year. I'm not, I'm not. I'll not have a cry over it. Might be one tear, but I'm definitely quite excited to have a go of it. But yeah, the South Tyne has a lot less water, but I still got to swim in quite a few places. I still managed to get some good swims in, but there's a lot more falling over, knacking myself, bruises. It was painful. I'm so pleased I did it, like just one day at a time. But my gear changed completely.
So did you need more recovery time between sessions on the South Tyne because it was so much harder? And your kit, and you already said your kit was different this time, wasn't it? So did your kit get more trash this time?
Yeah, I've been through. I've spent a fortune on kit. I've trashed two suits. They're still usable, but they are trashed. I quite liked using my swim run suits. They were pretty awesome for what I was doing. Swim
run suits like nothing below the knee, isn't it? So they're like short ones. I'll tell you what. Let's crack on with kit then, because we're on to that now. Go on, go for it. So take us through what you use for your river trekking adventures.
Just trying to find a hole. No. Oh yeah, there's some good holes there for sure. So swim run suits, I've managed to damage quite one of them quite well. And what I would have on underneath would just be like a nice base layer. The neoprene boots that I was using were pretty hardy bits of gear, but I've went through four pairs since I started the whole journey, and they were about 50 to 60 quid a pair. So I've been searching for the whole time. I've been searching and trying to find companies to create particular boots, and trying to find stuff to make it a lot easier. I've managed to find something, and I'm very proud to show to you today.
Oh, you wouldn't, right? He refused to show me these, and we chatted earlier on in the week. So what are they? Come on, what are these beasts?
So these are Tierman boots. They've actually they've got the drainage holes. So these are just basically really hardy, really good materials, wading boots. So these, I've had to wait for these to come from abroad. The company that makes them specialize in wading gear, fishing gear, and realizing that these actually are the way to go. but they're massive, and
I was going to say they aren't built for swimming. You're not going to be swimming in them.
No, they're not. You see, this is the thing. There's like a few different sort of types of river trekking. There's the type that I do need the neoprene boots, where the neoprene boots were a lot easier to switch into my swimming, and with these I can still swim, but they're not the greatest. Like, they're just making it a lot harder. But for what I'm doing up at the South Tyne, they're perfect. I'm probably gonna get through quite a bit. But yeah, so I would actually inside them, I've got some nice neoprene, and I would be wearing neoprene socks. So I go through quite a few neoprene socks. I showed you before with my knife that's nicely tucked into my gear. But with everything, I mean, probably the most important part out of my river trekking is this. This is my. I was
going to ask you about your stick.
Yeah. So this is my hazel stick that my dad made us. So this thing's actually done quite a bit of mileage, and it's got a lovely little tether on there. So when I'm actually moving through and holding this actually wraps through and is attached to my thumb, and it's also always going to have a clip on. So I've got a belt that goes around my waist, that basically this clicks into. So whenever I switch into swimming, I just drop it and it clicks into my waist, and then I'm swimming with the stick hanging out the back.
Why a big wooden stick rather than, say, a walking pole?
The walking poles did just get totally trashed. It was one of my first. I was really disheartened by it. One of my first attempts for the river trekking was to test out a walking pole, a really strong one, and I snapped it straight away. And then it was waste. It just went into the bin, and I was really devastated. And I thought, well, it needs to be a really strong bit of wood. And it's this.
Yeah.
So I mean, the hazel stick is the business, and it's on the bottom. It is totally. It's went through a lot. But thing is, though, that is not going to change, and it won't snap. It'll take a hell of a beating. So my dad's made a few of them. Now we're going on to what I've. Yeti. I don't know if anyone's like familiar with Yeti. Yeti came up with this bag, and this is the Panga. So this bag is fully waterproof, and it's got a very, very tough zip on there. So when it goes underneath the water, there's no water getting inside there at all. So this bag has been a big part of my South Tyne. So, and it's the South Tyne that I've had to take on this, and no water is getting in there at all. And so I have my camera gear in there as well. I actually stood on this bag underneath the water for about 7 or 8 minutes. Not a drop of water went in. It's a very, very tough bag. So a big shout to Yeti for supporting me on that. But that then would have the ruck raft attached on the back of it. So you would have the ruck raft on the back of here, which is on a tubular float. And whenever I was like in waterway, I could actually start swimming. I would take off the backpack, chuck it into the water, and it would start floating, and I would just start swimming. And then when I get to a point where I need to stand up, I would just get the bag, put it on my back, click it in, and then I start trudging through. So it was a really, really like quick sort of transition between, apart from when I wanted to stop and take a photograph. Oh my God, it just took ages.
There's a lot of pictures and videos to come out of all these trips, aren't there? Yeah.
First aid kits. These are some of the sort of standard things that I had to some very particular things that I had to take with us. Of course, I've got like some pretty good emergency gear, and like, you know, when it comes down to like this, like survival, if I had to stop and look after myself, I could. So I have been trained quite well by a particular friend, and I'll be able to actually stay out for quite some time. So I've got my rechargeable lighter, which I'm very proud of, and everything I could possibly need, I had with us, but on a very small scale. So the little survival bag, it was packed with phone charger, a small strobe light, just in case, stuff to make a fire, and then my food bag. I had quite a good food bag with a lot of things made with oats, and bars made by Outdoor Provisions, and also some bars made by Velafort as well. All normally really, really good high energy stuff. And one or two bottles of juice. Most important, some Luro.
You mustn't forget it. I find this really interesting. It's, you know, if you're out all day, toileting is going to be an issue, and you've got to think it through. I think it's one of those things that isn't talked about enough in this bigger world we are seeing of people being interested in wild camping, in kind of day-long treks, in more remote stuff, and it's talked about in some places, but not enough, I don't think.
It's true. That is true.
But you've got to think it through, and you've got to think about the pollution impact of you toileting near the river as well.
Biodegradable stuff. More stuff that I was eating was wrapped in something that could easily disappear and not harm. Same with the tissues, you know. Big lifesaver was gorilla tape wrapped around a so that sort of thing, like I mean, it came in handy a few times, and then you know, breaking gear and stuff. I did lose a few things down the river. One particular moment, I was quite chuffed, and this happened on the South Tyne. I dropped my walking pole, and it was in fast-moving water, and I turned around, and I seen it, and I jumped, and I saved it. I was so chuffed. Yeah. But then, literally 100, 200 meters up, I had my hand paddles. They were black, and you're talking about peaty water, and I dropped them, and it floated off. I was like, I couldn't see it, so I just had to quickly clip everything in, and I just started diving around, swimming down I think I swam down the river about 400 meters, and I lost. I know I was devastated, but I found my hand paddle. I'm so chuffed. Yeah.
Oh man. So how did you fuel these trips? Because obviously you're out for a whole day. You're generally unsupported. Well, you've got people meeting you maybe and picking you up at the end, but you're self-sufficient, aren't you, for your day while you're out? Have you got any idea the kind of calorie intake you needed, or did you literally just go, right, I need to eat?
Yeah.
I know when I've done. I did a trip on the solstice one year, and we did Scarfell Pike, swam down the water, and then cycled up to the coast. And a mate came and supported us on it. And when we finished swimming the length of water, she said she's never seen people eat like that. And we had all kinds of snacks with us, and we literally stood by the water's edge and just inhaled food. We didn't even realise we were very hungry. But she said, I've never seen food disappear so quickly. The amount of energy it takes to do this stuff is mental, isn't it?
It is. I consumed a lot, and I must say, like a lot of the stuff that I was actually taking on snacks wise was the Outdoor Provision bars. They were great, but also a lot of like porridge and oats. At one point, I did actually make up some super porridge. And it was a very small pot of porridge, and it literally had all sorts in it. It was some people would say it would be absolutely disgusting, but I had Nutella in there, honey, the whole shebang, and just scoops of it was just amazing. So that was one of my favorite ones. But yeah, I got a fair bit of support on from the likes of Outdoor Provisions, Velafort, and I've got a very kind swimmer of mine up at the lake. She's been making me some oaty balls, and I haven't really, to be honest, I not just yet. I haven't really fully tried them in the river trekking yet, because she's only recently been giving us them, and we've called them, and she's going to shop with us. She's called them Ridley's balls. So
I was waiting. To be honest, I was kind of waiting for chocolate salty balls, but that's even better.
Yeah, Ridley's balls, and to be honest, I think she's got something quite special there. They're quite good.
She needs to get that trademarked.
Yeah, totally. I did. At first, I did carry too much gear, and I did downscale quite a lot, because I was carrying too much gear. I mean, it wasn't massively heavy, but yeah, by the time I'm getting up this last sort of sections of the South Tyne, I've got hardly any sort of gear with us, really. Well, I would say that, but compared to the start. So yeah, lots of snacks, and I did try out some pretty good gels, but they were my last resort sort of stuff. I don't particularly like gels and jellies. From being a marathon swimmer, I used to swim a lot of long distance and covering anything between 700 to 800 mile a year. I went through all sorts of different things that fit well with me. And one of the best things was chocolate brownies, homemade, with lots of coconut oil, so they're just like home. But also, I'm powered by oats, massively. I get a lot of power from oats. So yeah.
They're magic. They are the magic of oats is pretty special. So I want to talk a little bit about the state of the Tyne. So obviously, slightly plugging another talk I'm doing in February. I think we're going to talk a bit about water quality and swimming, and kind of what people can do to try and support that. What state is the Tyne in? Good state, bad state? Did you get poorly when you were doing your swim? I know we've talked a little bit about you. I know you do litter picks and stuff on the Tyne, don't you? Take the board out and go and fish stuff out. So how did you find it?
So there was a few targets in the whole stretch, and it wasn't just about the endurance and the enjoyment of seeing the Tyne in a very special way. It was also to record and report back to certain organizations about what I was seeing, pollution wise, and the amount of stuff. I mean, I opted out on the first part of river trekking. I've opted out of carrying stuff with me, because it would just continue to get bigger and bigger, and I wouldn't be able to carry everything. So yeah, I did see quite a bit of litter, and it did spark me to create help clean our waters, which is something I started up last year. And it was to encourage more swimmers to take foldable grab handles and litter pickers and pick up litter when they go for a swim. Because I did actually, quite often when especially swimming in fast flow, and I would see the same bush constantly. There was a particular time I saw this beer, and it was a bit of what do you call it now? I'm forgetting. I've lost my words. No.
Anyway, Bailiff twine.
Bailiff, yeah. Bailiff twine. Yeah.
Bailiff twine. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was basically this bit of plastic rope for people not really. And it was stuck in a tree, and it was wafting around with the wind. And I was still in the same spot, looking at it, going, "I'm going to get you out when I come past. I'm going to get you." But I couldn't, because it was too difficult, and it encouraged me to go back and go, I'm going to go and clear loads of like the rubbish down there.
I think I think it's quite a unique viewpoint we have as swimmers, that a bit very much like as when we were paddlers and still are paddlers. Being on and in the water gives you an entirely different viewpoint of what is there and what the state of the river is, and what
absolutely
and the fact that you know that you can help, you know that you can go and fish stuff out. I've litter pits on our canal on my paddleboard, and you know, you can make a massive difference by going out and doing that, because it's stuff that other people can't get to.
Exactly. I mean, if we go back to your question of what is the Tyne like right now, I would probably have to say to you it's quite bad, because and this is only because of what we've just had in the storm. It has been getting a little bit better, but there is still a lot of rubbish that gets blown into the water, swept into the water, washed in by overflows and all sorts. And it's not always just people just throwing it in there. It comes from different angles as well. So yeah, unfortunately, we are still seeing, I know it is a very little amount of impact that we can do when we set out to encourage people to pick litter up, and also the likes of myself and you and others who are actually going out on vessels to pick up litter, and also going on the beach cleanups. It all helps. I mean, I would always encourage everybody to take a little net bag and a foldable litter picker and just pick up a few bits. It helps.
Yeah, every little helps, doesn't it? Yeah.
I've got some. There will be some going up on my website. I've got a handful of foldable litter pickers, and I'm also adding in as for free as a help clean our waters swimming cap. So you'll get the grab hook and the swim cap. But the more people that we can kind of get involved with that sort of thing, it's quite important. There's more swimmers, well, there should be more litter pickers when it comes down to those water edges. So yeah, going back onto the like, what state is the river in, and how did you see it? I saw a lot of wildlife. Like I saw thousands and hundreds of thousands of herring, and like it just didn't end. I saw some beautiful nature, stuff I wanted to capture on my GoPro, but you know, it just wouldn't come out the same. But it was all in there, and it was lovely to see.
Magic, isn't it? I think it's really magical being in the water, and you're quiet so that you can see it. I've had a bit of a binge on Fenwick's YouTube channel the last few days, because I'm not allowed to leave the house, and I would recommend everybody to go and flick through all of his videos on YouTube, but there's a particularly beautiful one where he swims with an otter, which is just heavenly. Go and check it out. Anyway, right, we've got a few minutes left. We've had a few questions in, so I'm just going to hammer them out to you. Yeah, first one, which is my favourite one, which I think I know the answer to. What's the biggest thing you fished out the river? Keep it short.
The biggest thing, well, yeah, it would probably be the fridge freezer. Apart from, there has been a tractor tire, which was quite big. But I would say the fridge freezer was probably the most adventurous one, I would say.
I like the fridge. The fridge, he managed to get the fridge on the top of the rock raft, by the way, everyone, and swim with it a bit. It was very, have a look, see if you can find the pictures. Next one.
I must back that up, mind. It was during lockdown, and I couldn't take it to the tip, so I had to leave it on the side. And when I went back to check on it, kids had kicked it back in, so I had to get it back out and put it on the side. And by that point, I'd got it in and out, and decided to do some training with it. It ended up me swimming a few miles over the fridge. But yeah, it was one of the most entertaining ones, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We've covered calories. What did you do at the end of each day? Did you camp out or did you go home when you were doing this? Is kind of probably more the North Tyne, because you went home to a nice warm bed, didn't you?
I did, yeah, because the original plan was to camp out, but being realistic, it was my first river trekking sort of ordeal and hammer to my body. I decided to learn more about it all and allow myself to prepare a little bit better. and come home. Since it was close to home, I decided to camp to stay at home on the night time, and then get up and go back to the point where I exit the water. But the next sort of river trekking, I've got a few planned where I'm going to be staying on the water's edge. Yeah.
But I think really important question, because some people see these trips and go, oh well, they must have stayed out, they carry all their kit and stuff, and actually you don't always have to. You can find ways and means, and it's so important to make sure that you're giving yourself the comfort and the time to recover, to be able to do the rest of it.
I was broken on that. The North Tyne was a breaker for sure, and so is the South Tyne, but there was a lot of I managed to get some good support from your optimal performance, which is Yop, and Kate would come round and actually give us a massage on the after. Oh, it was amazing. It just knocked me out. So big shout out to Kate.
You're welcome to come down here if you need anyone to practice on, Kate. Always up for a post-swim massage.
Maybe it's not
right.
I
think. No. You're allowed down on Thursday when I'm released from COVID jail. Right, that, my lovely, is it. We've answered all our questions. We've had a really lovely chat. I hope everybody's really enjoyed it tonight. I know it's been an absolute joy to chat to Fenwick. He's a wonderful bloke. Go and check out his YouTube channels. Go and have a look at his Instagram. There's some amazing pictures on there. We ran out of time to go through his pictures today, but there's some phenomenal ones on there. Yeah.